It is Wednesday, August 23rd, 2023 at Protestia Studios, and this is your intelligence briefing. Thank you so much for tuning in. Head over to protestia.com for all the latest in Christian polemics and discernment news. Sign up for the insurgency email list and head over to patreon.com/protestia to join us on a financial level. Let's get right into it. First headline: Kenya closes 5 churches after hundreds of congregants fast to death. This coming from African News. Kenyan authorities have banned 5 churches, including that of a pastor accused of inciting more than 400 followers to fast to death. So this fasting, of course, the biblical practice of worshipful practice of foregoing food and sustenance in order to focus on prayer and time with God, but you're not supposed to do it until you die. This is according to a government document in Kenya. The association's registration office said the license of self-proclaimed pastor Paul, I'm going to get this wrong, Nyetgi Mackenzie's Good News International Church has been canceled on May 29th. So apparently in Kenya, churches are registered by the state, which I would argue, generally speaking, is a bad thing. But in this case, it sounds like a good thing if 400 of your followers have fasted to the point of dying. See the rest of this article at Protestia, and a link near the bottom of the article to read the full article over at African News. Next headline: pro-life board member. We talked about this before. Pro-life board member lobbies against bill to abolish abortion and successfully shuts it down. So this is the same group in Ohio Right to Life. And apparently they have a board member who helped stop an abolitionist bill from becoming law in the state. 3 days ago, Ohio Right to Life terminated their communications director, Lizzie Marbach, for sharing the gospel on Twitter, and the great sin of calling out a particularly noxious pro-choice activist by describing them as a murderous liar for spreading pro-baby killing propaganda. So this, and the additional information here is Mike McGuire. A new report from the Sentinel reveals Mike McGuire, one of Ohio Right to Life's board members, who also works as a senior Republican aide, has been working behind the scenes to crush a bill to abolish abortion that the abolitionist group End Abortion Ohio crafted. So abortion abolition, as most of you know, is the difference between abolition and the pro-life movement. It seems to be that the abolitionists do not show preference. They do not have unequal weights and measures when it comes to who is responsible for the death of a baby, the death of a human being. Abolitionists, like myself, believe that everybody who contributed to the death of that baby, including the mother that made the decision to abort it, should be held legally accountable. This is a biblical concept of judging rightly with equal weights and measures, not showing partiality, and yet a good amount of the pro-life movement is based around the idea that women deciding of their own free will and with all of the information in front of them to kill their unborn children should get off the hook for it, not be held responsible. And Ohio Right to Life apparently fits into that category. So this pro-life board member, McGuire, is on record saying they will, quote, continue to oppose legislative and political initiatives that criminalize women who seek abortion. So, and this is really an outcropping and a symptom of the larger feminist influence in our culture and even in conservative and many Christian circles to treat God's judicial standard differently, apply it differently depending on the gender of the person in question. This is an outpouring of that, or symptoms of this problem. Go over to Protestia to read the latest on this situation. Ohio End Abortion President Austin Bagel, maybe it's pronounced, who is the president of End Abortion in Ohio, the abolitionist group, said to say he is heartbroken is an understatement, but this betrayal did not surprise God. What man meant for evil, God intends for good. And we agree. Next headline at Protestia: Brian Houston, disgraced lead pastor, guru of Hillsong Church, rejoices at not guilty verdict and announces his next plans. He has been crooning and crowing after being acquitted on charges that he concealed his father, Frank Houston's sexual abuse of a minor by not reporting it to police. It's an odd boast given that he did conceal it, did not go to the police after learning his father was a pedophile. But supposedly this judge said he had a reasonable excuse. He's was found not guilty, and yet, of course, we still find him morally culpable, as I think any fair-minded observer of the situation does. But now he has been found spending his former congregants' tithe money on disgustingly lavish meals, hotels, and entertainment. Wrote on an Instagram post, quote, "Finally, I was vindicated by an in-depth judgment which compellingly pulled apart the prosecution's argument one by one. He criticized the media for building narrative, I guess maybe that includes us, I don't know, building narrative on a completely false premise regarding the circumstances and misleading people with a narrative hell-bent on discrediting an influential church and turning a noble name into a bad name." So you can see in our article here a lot of the information about Hillsong and the Houstons and why all of that is highly problematic. But safe to say, Brian Houston is taking a victory lap. For now, he's taking a victory lap. Next headline, rejoicing, of course, Alberta pastor James Coates to be acquitted of all COVID charges. We have covered James Coates since he stubbornly and righteously refused to close his church in the face of government persecution and all of the lies and the manipulation and the strong-arming that has surrounded that in the COVID era. He is now to be acquitted on all charges. This from the Epic Times. After more than 2 years of legal wrangling, Alberta Crown prosecutors intend to ask the court to acquit James Coates and Grace Life Church of all charges that were laid during the pandemic. This follows a court decision on July 31st that ruled public health orders issued in the province were invalid and enacted outside the powers of the province's Public Health Act. So head over to Protestia to read this. There is a link at the end of the article to head over to the Epic Times and get the full scoop. Next headline, former leader of the ELCA goes off on Jesus' sermon, calling him mean, troubling, and even a little racist. So Evangelical Lutheran Church of America calling Jesus all sorts of names and pushing heresy and preaching blasphemy from their pulpits is no surprise to any observer of that quote-unquote Christian denomination. Last Sunday, former head of the ELCA, Mark Hansen, preached a sermon at Elk River Lutheran Church in Minnesota where he went off on Jesus, describing him as mean, cruel, troubling, an advocate of NIMBYism, not in my backyard, and quite frankly, even a little racist. It's no big surprise, as the ELCA is functionally one of the most heretical and demonic denominations in America. We have a bunch of links here demonstrating this. This is the gentleman, say that with obviously a grain of salt. Former leader of Lutheran denomination goes off on Jesus in a sermon, calling him mean and troubling.
So the story is not just disruptive, it's deeply troubling. If you came to worship this morning hoping to hear about a loving, merciful, patient Jesus, I'm sorry to disappoint you, because Jesus' response to the Canaanite woman's plea for mercy was very troubling. How did Jesus respond? He didn't. Absolute silence. And the story gets actually worse. Don't send emails of complaint to your two pastors of, why did you invite that former bishop? He was so mean to Jesus. No, it was Jesus who was troubling. I'm just amplifying it. So what followed Jesus' silence to the woman's plea for mercy? Well, the silence was broken, but not by Jesus, but by Jesus' disciples. The disciples said, "Send her away, Jesus. She's irritating us. She's shouting. Just send her away." In the encounter with Jesus, the Canaanite woman, it was disruptive and troubling and irritating and maddening. Downright maddening, because when Jesus did respond, what did Jesus do? He said, "You're an outsider. I'm not going to give you any mercy. I was sent only to the lost sheep of Israel." Jesus exhibited what we all too often see today and we call NIMBY. Not in our backyard, not in our neighborhood, not in our church, not in our nation.
The profound level of heretical disrespect for God, for the God of the universe, it's infuriating. This is a lost person claiming to be Christian clergy, claiming to be, and any church that wouldn't drive him out of the pulpit when he started saying this kind of thing is merely yet another synagogue of Satan. I mean, to think that these are supposedly Christian people, which of course I think if you're in that denomination, you're likely not, sitting there listening to somebody from their pulpit blaspheme Jesus Christ, and they just sit there silently. It's a sight to behold. Watch the rest of the video over at protestia.com or on Protestia Twitter. Last headline: Devil Blaster ? Top female evangelist in the world whips out her water pistol filled with anointed oil. So this is Juanita Bynum, who you've probably heard of before, the prosperity gospel preaching prophetess and self-described #1 female evangelist in the world, along with selling $2,000 life coaching sessions. If you're willing to pay Juanita Bynum $2,000 to life coach you, you deserve to lose that $2,000. $133 praying kits on her website. She made available to purchase a black vow card that gives a 25% discount on her products for the tidy sum of $5,333, meaning you'll have to spend tens of thousands of dollars in merchandise to even be worth it. So she was at a Weapons of Power conference, whipping out a water pistol filled with a concoction of anointed oil. Of course, we have a video of this insanity, and here it is.
The Lord said to me, I want you to pour all of your oil that you have, from your mother, from your aunt, from Pastor Boyd, the last pure oil you have, and I want you to pour it in there. And I want that to be your sacrifice, because the anointings that is upon every bottle is what's going to sit on people. And I said, okay, God. So Kathy, I thought he was going to say, pour a little bit in the bottle. And he said, but these people,
I see pull out the water pistol now. There it is. Oh my gosh. This is wow.
these people
Wow.
would not be the people that just pray a little bit. These people will point their weapon. These people will tell the devil, if you don't shut up, I'm going to get my weapon.
Is this like a hands up, don't shoot moment or something? I'm not sure. Yeah, go over to Protestia to read the details on that one. And by the way, follow Protestia on Twitter to get more insanity sent right to your feed. One last thing. This isn't one of the headlines, but I wanted to say real quick for those of you that listened to Protestia tonight and took issue, and I got quite a bit of feedback on this, I suppose, but took issue with how I addressed Oliver Anthony and his song Rich Men North of Richmond. I did get some loving correction, I suppose, on the federal taxes for poorer or the lower half of income taxpayers, reminding me that no, everybody's still paying federal tax one way or another, which is true. So I stand corrected. I meant to indicate that federal income tax liability in the lower half is virtually nothing. I stand by my assessment, and I encourage you to go watch the latest Protestia tonight. I stand by my assessment that I am concerned about this young man's spiritual condition. He is not to be looked at as some sort of a spiritual leader or an example of Christianity. He has yet to, as far as I can see, actually proclaim, he hasn't said that he believes the gospel, and he hasn't even, as far as I can see, offered any sort of a true explanation of the gospel. It's just been, there's a God there that loves you, and that look how my situation turned around, and so because he can use me, he can use you, that kind of thing. And so I stand by my assessment of my concerns, and I would encourage all Christians to, if you want to support the political positions in the song and find it to be a good thing because of that, I'm with you. I agree with most of what was said in that song. A couple things I'd take a little issue with, but mostly I'm on board with the political sentiments. But to get to the point where you're saying this man is ordained by God for this moment and he's speaking for God and this and that, no, slow your roll. that is not justifiable by what we've seen. And if there are plenty of places around the internet that you can go to get the more political take on all of this, and I would likely agree with a lot of them, but this is the place that you go to get the doctrinal discernment take on things, and we don't let up on that analysis simply because we agree with somebody's political statements and whatnot. So take that for what it's worth. We appreciate you trusting us to do that work anyway, and thank you to the patron supporters that continue to support us when we take that kind of heat. We'll see you next time. Thanks for tuning in to this intelligence briefing. Have a good rest of your day. As always, Semper Reformanda.